Grab you a hamburger and a milkshake. We're talking Riverdale. This is a review for Riverdale, Chapter 5, Heart of Darkness. Alright, so the plot thickened last night. We learned a lot of information about Jason Blossom. Some of it may or may not play into his murder. But before we get talking about that, let's deal with the B story. Archie in his music. Yeah, Archie and his music. He was talking to one of the pussycats, Valerie, and she hooked him up with the number of one of her friends in the music industry, some kind of producer or something. She said, yeah, this guy can help you out. And then Archie becomes kind of conflicted because he wants to work on his music, but at the same time, he's got his commitments to football. The coach wants to make him a quarterback. And he says, hey, I'm going to make either you the quarterback or Reggie the quarterback. And I thought we were going to have an interesting storyline here where Archie and Reggie are competing, to be quarterback. But no, they got to keep focusing on Archie and his music. I want to play my music. Like I said, it could have been interesting. Reggie, we haven't seen a lot of him. But nope. Yeah, he doesn't play into it at all. It's all about Archie and his music. And, it's like, what is it with the CW and shafting their Asian characters? Hashtag give Reggie a story. Maybe Reggie and Dilbert Doily, the other character who's played by an Asian, they go out and they find a gold mine. Something for Reggie and Dilbert. They find a gold mine, and 150 years later, Monty from the 100 finds it. Kind of put the two shows in the same universe. That would have been cool. But no, it's all about Archie and his music. And I actually did find it amusing because when, the music producer, listened to his songs and goes, God, kid, you ain't got no talent whatsoever. that was my favorite scene. Was when the music guy was basically telling Archie his music sucks. And then at one point, Archie's like, God, was Mrs. Grundy lying to me about how good I am? And like, yeah, because she wanted to ride your dick, you dumb shit. And basically, that goes nowhere. I mean, he decides he's going to stay with his music. And he's going to stay on the football team, but not be the quarterback. Anyway, let's get into all the important stuff that happened tonight. So like I said, a lot of information was put out about Jason Blossom tonight, and that comes through Betty and Jughead. They're investigating his murder, trying to start the murder wall all over again, seeing how Kevin's father's murder wall had been destroyed. So, Betty's out interviewing his friends. They go to the Blossom house for the memorial, snoop around. Betty asks her father some questions, and let's just get into what was revealed last night. One, Jason Blossom was selling drugs. He was trying to get some money, and he was also pawning stuff, and at some point, according to one of his friends, he got into selling drugs. Two, at some point, Jason and Polly had a fight, and Polly tried to kill herself after that. And this is why she ended up in the mental institution. Jason and Polly were engaged. And of course, we learned this through one of the coolest characters they introduced last night, Grandma Rose. And she's Jason and Cheryl's grandmother. Quite the character she was. The first time you see her, they're having dinner at the Blossom house with Veronica. And, the grandmother's just kind of sitting there eating her soup, being really quiet. And the next scene that you see her in, it's, Betty and Jughead are investigating Jason's room, snooping around. And she was in the corner, she just wheels on out, like, oh, I'm so happy to see you, Polly. Mixing up Betty with Polly, and that's how you find out she's engaged. I like her character so far. I mean, she's a bit senile, a bit crazy. Or is she? Maybe it's all an act. Like I said, she's my new favorite character, Grandma Rose. I think that's her name. And we'll see if they do anything more with her. 4, there is a long-standing feud between the Cooper and Blossom families. And it goes back a couple generations where Betty's great-grandfather was in the maple syrup business with Cheryl and Jason's great-grandpa. And the great-grandpa Blossom played great-grandpa Cooper for a sap with the maple syrup deal that they had. They were partners. Like I said, he played him for a sap, took over the business. And while great-grandpa Cooper, he became Mr. Butterhurt about all this, went and confronted, great-grandpa Blossom. Great-grandpa Blossom killed great-grandpa Cooper. And, Betty's father was pretty pissed about this, even though doubtful he ever knew his grandpa, and was saying, the Blossoms, they're all just shady. And that brings us to number 5. And number 5, it was Hank, Betty's father, who stole all the evidence and information from the sheriff on the Jason Blossom murder. He's the one that tore down the murder wall, and he has all those files at his house. Okay, so that's basically what happened tonight. I did think it was a pretty decent episode. We learned a lot of information. They remember that, they've got this murder investigation going on. The only drawback was Archie and his music. That storyline just bored the shit out of me. And it's like, okay, there are other characters I'd like to see their storylines, like Reggie. I'm not into Archie and his whole music thing. And it's like the music guy said, his music sucks, all right? He's terrible. I'm assuming he's supposed to get better, but right now it's terrible. So fuck him and his music. But the stuff with the murder investigation, Betty and Jughead working together, I like that, And I'm going to have some pretty interesting theories coming right up. Okay, so let's just actually get into those theories. I've come up with 5. A lot of them just coming from this episode, but I've kind of felt a few of them before. Number 1, Polly was pregnant. And this is what led to the fight between her and Jason, because I'm thinking... okay, so let's just get into the theories. Now, first theory, I think Polly was pregnant. Jason got her pregnant. This would explain why he was trying to raise the money. Now, what happened to the baby? Did she have it? Is she still going to have it? I don't know. Maybe she had an abortion. Maybe she had a miscarriage. Maybe she gave it up for adoption. But I'm pretty sure she got knocked up by Jason. This is what caused, problems. 2, Hank, he stole all of that evidence from the sheriff because he's protecting his family. And what I mean by this is he suspects that either one of his daughters or his wife killed Jason Blossom, so he's covering it up. And I think, 3, the daughter that he's covering for is Betty. I think Betty has in her head, every once in a while, she thinks she's Polly. And we've seen this before, so it's not too much of a theory. But I think it's kind of started because, Polly was her father's favorite, maybe her mother's too. And, living in the shadow, Betty started acting like Polly, and then she started thinking she was Polly. It's kind of like a Norman Bates thing without the, matricide. And, that's why her father thinks she killed Jason Blossom, because every once in a while she goes, "I'm not Betty, I'm Polly." And yeah, that's why I think the father stole the evidence, because he thinks Betty killed Jason Blossom. Okay, and speaking of Jason Blossom, I'm gonna lay down my theory as to who killed him. And I think that was the Southside Serpents, particularly Kevin's boyfriend, Joaquin. And how this came about is we know, according to his friend, that Jason was selling drugs. So where do you think he's getting them from? The Southside Serpents, the crime lords of Riverdale, right? So I think he was selling drugs from them. And because he's trying to raise money to help Polly out, because she's pregnant and whatnot, and they want to run off and get eloped, he was skimming a little off the top of his profits. It's sort of like he gets a bunch of money from selling drugs, and he's like, one for me, one for the serpents. 1, 2 for me, 2 for the serpents. 1, 2, 3 for me, 3 for the serpents. Well, the serpents find out about this, and if you're following the Hermione, Veronica's mother's story, they don't like to be shortchanged. They'll put a snake in the box. Well, in Jason's case, they got a hold of him, and they were torturing him to find out where all the money went, and then eventually they find out, it's gone, so, wow. And I think, I say Joaquin because he's really the only Southside Serpent we've been introduced to, except for Jughead's father. And I think they'll keep Jughead's father around for a couple seasons, but Joaquin, he's not that important, so he'll end up being the killer. And that's where I'm standing right now. It was the Southside Serpents who killed Jason because of money that he owed them from selling drugs to take care of his pregnant girlfriend. Who also, the reason he faked his death so he could go out and marry. So maybe they did have a kid. And we'll have to see.